I'm not going to stay because somebody sneezed. All right. And I want to turn off my phone. And then, so Sarah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. I'm just going to read a couple very short introductory comments for the event, and then I'm going to introduce the fabulous, fantastic speakers who have agreed to join us tonight. I'm like I was just saying, I'm like kind of in a fangirl moment because all of these people, I really am just honored to be in the same room with. So my name is Johanna Hedba. I, as my day job, work for the Processing Foundation, which is a nonprofit that emerged around a software, an open source software that was invented in 2000, and it's primarily used by artists or people learning to code who are not mathematically or engineering brained people. So in 2012, we started a nonprofit to make sure that these tools were accessible to communities who have historically not had access to the fields of technology, software, the internet, coding, all that kind of stuff. So my job is to help make those communities in any way that I can feel more comfortable by directly addressing some of the issues of systemic oppression that have made the world the way that it is today. So I was hired particularly because of my political activism, and I read it for you like I always sort of start whenever I give a public thing. I always want to be sure you understand where I'm just personally coming from. Like I'm here tonight because this is my part of the thing I'm doing for my job, but it's also something I really do in my real life. So I call myself an anti-capitalist psychonaut sorceress who strives to practice an intersectional feminist, queer, anti-white supremacist, anti-colonial politics. And I do believe that that has to happen every day in every element and level of my life, from my day job to my relationships to my Tumblr to my everything. So this event emerged because I knew Sarah Williams, just sort of a friend, but she's the managing director of the Women's Center for Creative Work. And we thought it would be really beneficial for us, our organizations, to partner around doing a series of events in 2016 that would specifically address fostering a community that was open to people who have felt not welcome in these fields. Technology, the art world, online, everything. I mean, I think we don't feel welcome in a lot of places. And so part of the thing for tonight is to make a space where we do feel like our voices are together in solidarity, in support of each other. And I just want to say that I want to quote like a couple of things that I just was thinking about today and reading Surin's book and watching her video. She has a YouTube channel. She made this fantastic recent video about Black joy being revolutionary. And one of the things she said is, there's this idea that if you're not constantly in pain, you're not a revolutionary. And she was like, reject that. Your joy and your happiness is a revolutionary act. And I think that making spaces like this where we can all feel safe to express the harassment, the hate, the microaggressions, everything that we have encountered as others from the mainstream discourse is really powerful to me. And I'm like kind of emotionally moved that we're all just here. So with that, I want to introduce our fantastic panelists. The first person to present is going to be Surin Sensei, who is up there, and you will see her better when we turn off the lights. Her bio is Surin Sensei is a social justice blogger on YouTube that discusses race, current events, and pop culture. She currently has a book available in paperback, Kindle, and digital download, which I have here. And I recommend that you get it immediately. I watched every single one of Sarin's videos, and I've read this book, and I consider her one of my great teachers. So Sarin will be the first presenter. The second presenter is Patricia Riolini on this side. We got in touch because I just tweeted that I'd love to hear from more women of color in LA, and she got in touch with me, which just felt great. So her bio is Patricia Riolini is a self-taught software engineer, like props to that already, an artist and a Mexican-American woman. Currently, she works at Laurel and Wolf, an interior design startup, and is a subversive member of the programming community. She regularly contributes to open source, volunteers as a mentor at local meetups, and has led workshops on Git and GitHub. On the side, she is working on a tarot card Twitter bot. Really? Amazing. That's great. And is an organizer for a female collective of programmers, designers, and the technologically inclined. Okay, third up is my friend Aaliyah, but also just the fabulous Aaliyah Magdalena Dark. And her bio is, Aaliyah Dark is an artist and game designer whose work deals with agency and self-awareness. She's been called an activist, but is, quote, really just trying to be a decent fucking person, and hope to take a few people with her on the way. Well, I'm with you, so I'm sure we all will be at the end of tonight. Okay, and the fourth and final panelist is the fantastic Anne Hirsch. Her bio is, Anne Hirsch is a video and performance artist who examines the influence of technology on popular culture and gender. Her immersive research has included becoming a YouTube cam whore with over 2 million video views, and an appearance as a contestant on Frank the Entertainer in a Basement Affair on VH1. She was awarded a Rhizome Commission for her two-person play, Playground, which debuted at the New Museum and was premiered by South London Gallery at Goldsmiths College. Hirsch has been an artist in residence at Yaddo, Atlantic Center for the Arts, and Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. Recent solo shows, in case you're not impressed already, include MIT List Visual Arts Center, Smart Objects, Los Angeles, and the New Museum's online project space for Seal. You can learn more about her work by visiting therealanhirsch.com. And so I'm so pleased that the real one is actually here tonight. So the format tonight is that each of these fantastic speakers will be presenting. And we kind of just asked them to present on what they felt would be relevant for this topic. And then following that will be a 30-minute discussion among the speakers. It is kind of informal. There's no moderator. There will just be themes that have emerged of similarity, overlap, conversation, interest, that kind of thing. And then the second half of the evening will be led by Emma Cunningham, who's sitting over here. And I do want to read your bio. You put in the Google Doc, not sure if you need one, but in case you do, I definitely want to read your bio. Emma Cunningham is a former linguist turned software engineer turned hardware hacker turned STEAM educator activist. Concerned that the widening tech literacy gap is consolidating the power of technology for just a handful of cisgendered straight white tech bros, Emma's current work focuses on building programs to empower marginalized communities with software and hardware engineering practices. As the 1972 revised 10-point Black Panther Party program states, we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, peace, and people's community control of modern technology. So Emma will be leading the workshop, which will include various topics, and also whatever you want to bring to the workshop. Please make voice of that in the workshop section. We'll go over lots of things like how to block, self-care. This is also a story time, like shared stories, how to engage if you choose to with trolls, that kind of thing. So I think, is that everything? The bathroom is down the hall. There's junk food in the back, donuts, cookies, beer. Zines by Aaliyah, which she will also pass out that she's made. And so, yeah, I just want to say this is the first event of this series between the Platform Foundation and the Women's Center. And I'm so pleased to welcome you to. You do not have to finish that shit sandwich.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Everyone see me? Okay. So this panel is actually named after one of my videos, which is called "You Don't Have to Finish the Shit Sandwich," which is really about people feeling like they have to engage with ideas and concepts that are, for lack of a better word, shit, that are literally just shit ideas, they're shit concepts. They're false, they're just ideas that are shit, basically. And really what led me to make that video and what really led me to come up with that concept was I've actually been doing YouTube for almost 2 years now. In my first year that I was on YouTube, I used to regularly engage with a lot of trolls. And actually, I first heard this term called concern trolling. I had never heard that term before. I've since been hearing it a lot, and I know probably more people are familiar with that term, but I had never heard it. And basically, concern trolling is when someone, they're kind of pretending. They're pretending to engage with you. They're pretending to have real, actual dialogue with you, but really they're trolling you. They don't actually want to have a conversation. They don't actually want to have a dialogue. They're just leading you along to the moment where they can kind of drop their racist, sexist, homophobic, classist, capitalist bomb on you. And it really took me about a year of engaging with not just concerned trolls, but also just straight up in your face, hateful trolls to really realize that it was having an effect on me, it was having an effect on me emotionally, it was having an effect on me mentally. And I really had to take a step back and ask myself, was it worth it for me to continue engaging with these people and engaging with certain types of people that their whole purpose is just to troll me? Like, they're not trying to learn anything, they're not trying to have any dialogue. So I started asking myself, why am I spending all this energy on people that literally are just trolling, they're just trying to get under my skin? Which is how I kind of came to the conclusion of, you don't have to. You don't have to do that. You know, you don't have to finish the shit sandwich. You don't have to engage with these ideas and concepts that are false. And I actually did a follow-up to that video. It just went live yesterday, actually, on my channel called Echo Chambers. Because there's also this idea and this pushback against not engaging with trolls where people say, well, you're creating an echo chamber, you're stifling ideas, you know, you can't engage content, all ideas are good ideas. And I just feel like that there are so many shit sandwich ideas out there. Again, ideas that are intellectually dishonest, ideas that are factually just straight up wrong. And you don't have to engage with those ideas, especially when your mental well-being, you notice that that's taking, you know, a turn for the worse, your emotional well-being, your health, your mental health. You don't have to keep engaging with these ideas. You don't have to engage with these ideas to be a revolutionary. You don't have to, because there's this idea that we have to engage with problematic content all the time, 24/7, otherwise we're doing something wrong. And I, just like you said before, I reject that. Like, I reject so many things that when I first kind of started getting into activism, it was almost like, you know, there was this guide to activism and you had to like follow those guidelines. And a lot of that stuff I really just started rejecting. So I just feel like there's also a difference between creating an echo chamber where really, you know, reasonable and valid concepts and opinions are not heard. There's a difference between doing that and not engaging with ideas and concepts that are obviously intellectually dishonest. And engaging with ideas that you know are intellectually dishonest, engaging with ideas that you know are wrong, entertaining trolls, I feel like that just takes a lot of energy and a lot of mental exertion, and I really encourage people to disengage. Any of you guys have seen my videos, you guys know that I say all the time, like, disengage, anyone that follows me on Twitter knows I say all the time, disengage, especially if you're engaging with someone up to a certain point and it's like you're banging your head into a wall. You're basically inflicting harm on yourself at that point, you know, because you're not going to change that person's mind. So you have to feel like it's okay at a certain point to walk away, to say, you know what, I'm walking away, I'm disengaging, you know, for myself. That's not to say, you know, that we don't all have to deal with certain aspects of life that make us uncomfortable or things that, you know, we might from time to time feel unpleasant, because that's a part of life, part of growing pains. But one thing you do not have to do ever, in my opinion, is make space in your life for trolls, racists, you know, and people that just insist on having your full attention before you're allowed to tell them that they're wrong. Because I hear that so often, like, well, you have to read my whole 9-paragraph comment calling you all these different types of words and slurs before you're even allowed to tell me that I'm wrong. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to finish the shit sandwich. You don't have to sit through insults. You don't have to sit through, you know, people trolling you, hurting you to give a valid critique. You don't have to do that, especially if, for a lot of us, we do this work, we breathe this work, you know, we're constantly learning, we're constantly reading. I said in my echo chambers video, you know, there are certain things that I know. Like, I'm not going to argue with you about whether or not the school to prison pipeline is real. I'm just not going to do, like, there's no argument. There's no argument. And yet you'll have people that say, oh, well, you're not going to listen to me say that the school to prison pipeline is not real? Oh, well, then you're not going to give me a valid critique. And it's just like, no, like, there is a line, you know, there is a line. And it's important to know where that line is between real, meaningful dialogue and just letting harmful people take up space in your head. And I have to say that for me personally, since I've stopped engaging with trolls, since I've started, I moderate my comment section on YouTube, which I know a lot of people don't do, but I do. And it's very important to me to create a space on YouTube where people that do actually want to talk and have conversations can learn without getting trolled, because comment sections nowadays are just a hot mess, you know. I will say that once you start cutting those certain types of things out of your head, it's amazing the difference that you notice in your mental health. It's amazing the difference that you notice in your physical health. You know, it's amazing how you're less angry, how you're less sad, you're less, you know, you're just not letting these people take up space in your brain with obvious falsehoods. And it's just amazing the differences that you notice in your life. So for me, that is really the number one most important thing when it comes to dealing with trolls and hate and creating safe spaces, is really knowing where that line is between real meaningful dialogue and people that are just harmful trolls, again, trying to take up space in your head, not really trying to have a dialogue. And it can be hard. Like I said, I used to get hit by concerned trolls all the time, and I would go literally back and forth thinking I'm having a conversation, and then, like I said, they let the racist bomb fly, like, oh, well, you're just an angry black girl anyway. And it's just like, oh, I just wasted all this time talking to you just for you to basically tell me, you know, some racist, sexist trash. Like, that was such a waste of my time and my energy. I could have been, you know, expanding this energy on other things, doing my work. You know, Toni Morrison, as she always says, you know, you can't let racists and sexists take up too much space in your mind, because they prevent you from doing your work and doing what you need to do to kind of move yourself forward. And I just really think that that's extremely, extremely important. And it's not something that enough people talk about. One of the main reasons why I created my channel was because every day I'm watching the news, or I'm watching a panel, or, you know, I'm watching a discussion, and I hear someone say something that's just clearly outlandish, false, racist, and then I see a moderator say, like, oh yes, you have a point. You do have a point. And then I see, you know, the person sitting across from them with this look on their face, like, they don't have a point. Like, they do not have a point. What they said was just completely wrong. So it's really hard in this day and age, because we tend to fall into this whole, like, well, everyone has a point, everyone has a side. And it's just like, no, sometimes when Donald Trump says he wants to build a wall to keep out the racists and the Hispanics and the black people, that's wrong. That's wrong. Like, it doesn't have to be entertained. It's just wrong. And I feel like a lot of that has contributed to the really toxic environment that we even see right now with this election and, you know, with the things that you see on the news and in the media, because there's this idea that every single opinion and idea is not toxic, is not harmful, and is valid. So you just have to know, you know, for yourself when to take that step back and engage. And for me, that's really something super important for all of us to learn as we navigate, you know, especially these online spaces and these activist spaces where you have people all the time trying to undermine you, trying to get inside your head and trying to just hit you with this really hateful rhetoric. So that's just my contribution, that you don't have to finish the shit sandwich, that just like I said in my video, if someone brings you out a steaming pile of shit, it smells like shit, looks like shit, you take a bite and it tastes like shit, it's shit, you don't have to eat it anymore. So that's just how I feel about it. So that's my contribution to this panel for right now, I guess. That's my presentation. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that.
What about the live stream? Like, does it look the light? Totally connected. Let me see. I can check everything. So we turn on the lights. Can we turn the lights off again? See what it looks like with the knob?
Oh, there's not a reset for the side. So, hang out, everybody. How is everyone? Oh, there we go. Okay.
So this is what it looks like. Oh, there I use that. I think it looks good. Shall we just?
Yeah, I think we can. Okay, no, cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Are you guys okay with that?
So I guess I'm next. My name is Patricia. And I am a self-taught software engineer. I was graduated from college with an undergrad in business that I switched over to because I was studying art history and I listened to people, which I shouldn't have, and switched over. And then 2 years later, after looking for work and working in restaurants, I still didn't have a job. And so I quit my restaurant job and dedicated myself to teaching myself how to program. And that was in April. And in October, I was hired at a startup. So it's been a whirlwind. But unfortunately, when I jumped into the whirlwind, I did not know about the current culture and the current climate for women, especially in technology. And it hit me full force in the face. So I very engaged in community groups. I love being a part of groups of people and getting engaged. And so I was constantly applying for scholarships to conferences and to get involved with different communities and be involved in open source. And of course, by putting myself out there, I made myself more open to receiving online hate and hate in real life. And so at one of these events, there are two different events that I'm going to talk about, but basically at one of these events, I had gone to New York to go contribute to jQuery, which is a library for JavaScript that we use for the internet. And I went there and I was invited to go because I was someone with a diverse background and they wanted to include more people at this summit to contribute to open source. And when I got there, I was very excited and very engaged, and then something happened. I was teaching an older man who I assumed he had been invited as part of the elderly diversity group. He was an older white man, probably between 65 and 80. And I was teaching him how to get involved with GitHub, which is how we contribute to open source. And I've mentored a lot of people. I got really involved in LA and I've done workshops on GitHub. So I was there to learn, but I saw that this person was even newer than me. And my motto is, when there's someone who's farther down, who's farther below you on the ladder, reach down and give them the hand up. So I was trying to help him. And he decided that it was appropriate in his mind, to make the comment, and he said, you know, thank you so much for all of your help. I'd really like to buy you a drink afterwards for all of your help. And though for many people this wasn't like super shocking to hear, I was not interested. And I turned him down. I said, no, thank you. And then he repeated it again. And I said, no, thank you again. And then this time I said, you know what, if you really want to show me your gratitude, you can go forth and you can teach what I'm teaching you to the next people. Reach your hand down the ladder and lift someone else up. And he said, oh, okay, yeah. And then a couple minutes later, he goes, yeah, no, you're helping me so much. Thank you. I'd really like to buy you a drink. So at this point, some of the mentors kind of started to notice that there was something going on. And I was in a situation I never thought I would be in, which was going to a summit where we were meant to be having a diverse lineup, a space that I thought was safe, and discovering that it actually wasn't safe. And I felt threatened. So I decided to recuse myself. I walked away, I went outside, I came back. The conference organizers went and spoke to him later on, and they asked him not to come back on the second day. And I didn't have to deal with him, but then later on, after the event, there was a gathering, and I was discussing it with some of the other organizers, and a younger man decided that it would be great for him to put his input in, which was, yeah, you know what's coming. He goes, well, what if he meant it in this way? And that was the moment when I learned not to eat the rest of the shit sandwich. That was the moment when I learned that, I don't have to talk to this person anymore. He is clearly not hearing my side of the story. He's clearly not understanding that I felt vulnerable and victimized by this man in a position, that he was putting me in a position of, he was taking a position of dominance and putting me in a position of submission by having to reject him and having to continue to try and help him. And that was also what triggered me becoming more involved in something that happened at another event, which was that I was invited to join this back channel of all female coders, designers, and technologically inclined people that work in product and people that work in other things. And we are from New York City to LA, San Francisco, Canada, Toronto. We have 2 members in London. And we literally just chat all day about everything. We have an astrology channel where we talk about horoscopes. We talk about fixing your bicycle in another channel. We have a channel for talking. We have a Miss Andrew channel where we just kind of complain about stuff all day. But that was what proved to me that this was where my energy needed to go. My energy didn't need to go towards explaining the situation to someone who clearly did not want to understand the situation. And one of the girls who was at this event where I was in a bad situation, she was in this channel and she stepped up and she told him, you need to stop talking right now. If you're not willing to listen to the story of a woman that is trying to explain to you, when she was being taken advantage of, and you're not willing to hear her out and accept that that was her experience, then you need to stop talking. And she straight up told him that to his face, and we high-fived later, and it was great, right? And this taught me that my energy needed to go towards something that's often talked about when dealing with this stuff is the idea of self-care and how you should prioritize self-care. But self-care is really, really hard when you are in the middle of this whirlwind and everyone is throwing shit sandwiches at you, right? So what I found out was actually self-care is the wrong way of looking at it. We need to be looking at it as group self-care. And that, you need to have a group behind you that when you can't hold yourself up, they can hold you up and they can go forward with, they can go and fight your battles for you, which is the power of the subtweet, right? So when you have a troll bothering you, right? So this happened the other day with a friend of mine. I wanted to read her tweet. She's a fantastic programmer. She works for TED Talk. She lives in Toronto, and she tweeted about text-driven development. She made a really great metaphor, and she said, text-driven development is you have to eat your veggies before dessert, but for code. Eating the veggies still sucks, but it sucks less if you do it first. So text-driven development, I don't want to have to go into all of that, but it's pretty difficult to have to work through this form of coding. It's a practice. But it's more beneficial in the long term. It has a lot of benefits, right? And when you only have 140 characters, you can't write a manifesto on why something is good. So somebody tweeted back at her, it won't suck at all for whoever's maintaining your code in 6 months, possibly you. Which was kind of like, that was kind of what she was saying, was that, you know, eating your veggies is good for you because you're healthy, and like in 6 months you won't be like dying of something. So she really wanted to engage. She went into our community and she was like, I really want to tweet back at him. I really want to say this. And we all said to her, like, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think you should tweet that because he's going to take it literally. And then you're going to end up in this big shit sandwich storm, right? And so instead, I was like, hey, can I tweet something about it? And I tweeted a little script, which was woman, in parentheses, on Twitter, says, I like cake. Man appears out of nowhere and says, if you like baked goods, have you tried cake? And then a gif of like what's her name? The girl that's in Jessica Jones, like rolling her eyes, like, oh dear God. And so everyone immediately started retweeting it and sending it at him, and it was empowering because she didn't have to engage with him and have like a literal fight on the internet and have to deal with explaining herself. She could go and retreat and take care of herself while we jumped in and took care of it. And so I think it's really important that not only do you prioritize, taking care of yourself and walking away from people who are harassing you, but also like to be a part of a community. And it's a place where it's great because it's a place where you can be vulnerable and where you can like focus on your own mental health issues and help other people. We like have a text group where if someone's having like a panic attack or an anxiety attack, like we can text each other. Someone always jumps in. So prioritizing, like I think it's important to. Oh, God. I just wanted to like say that loud.
She's so happy. When you see us, we can see a still of you. I think I should hang up and try again. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna hang up and try again. You're me. Call busy. Oh. She has to get off the
Maybe this is a good time for people to maybe pass around the.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Peruse some of this work. Yeah. So I wasn't totally sure how I was going to do my introduction because, as usual, I have about a million different things that I can talk about. But having heard from both of these amazing women, I know exactly what my role will be right now, which is to provide a cautionary tale. And this little zine will come into play maybe mid-story. So even my bio, as you can see, was very brief. I am on the other end of the spectrum. I am kind of a hermit by intention. I fell into activism totally accidentally. I was 6 years ago, a community college student who like didn't even have that great self-esteem, who all they wanted to do was like validate themselves by like getting a fancy college degree and like not being in community college forever. And basically I wanted to find a space that in my mind would be safe And for so many loaded reasons, my idea of a safe space was like the right kind of white people. And we can unpack that later, but there's a lot of baggage there. So I really was like, I just want to go somewhere where people think my hair is cool and validate my diverse background. That's great. So I want to go to UCLA. I went to UCLA and I thought, finally, I'll be somewhere and I won't stand out. Just all kinds of backwards thoughts. Don't worry about that. But I just wanted to disappear. I really did. I was like, I just want to be around like some folks who are like nerdy, and that's it. And so I went to school, and I, ironically, like became, I mean, not that exactly, became radicalized as is like the typical go to college, learn stuff. But I learned a lot about my own identity. You see, like prior to going to UCLA, I had really bought into this whole idea of like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps if you're a marginalized person, because the people around me, I didn't see a lot of opportunities. I didn't see a lot of like positive choices. I was, bullied for various reasons. So I felt kind of alienated by my own community, and the things that I was taking in was also validated by the media, like media images. Like, okay, like I was not a Huxtable. Like, and the people I was around like seemed like, they are interested in the same things I'm interested in, or they're putting me down, or like I'm told like I'm white, and it's like, well, no, I'm black. And so I was like kind of struggling with that, and my response was to try to escape socially, try to escape financially. And my only sort of model of that was through education. Again, like go to college, get your education, be somebody, all of these things that come with that. And for me, getting a college degree really represented like entering the social class where I wouldn't be put down, where I would be like thought of as a person who deserved dignity and was worthwhile and had like value. So this idea of getting value externally. That probably would have worked out for me. And there are a couple ironies here. One, for me to make it this far, for me to have like gotten to UCLA with the background that I had, I basically got there, I think, by rejecting a lot of my identity, rejecting blackness. And that was rewarded. I entered these spaces, I get the education that was inaccessible to me and my peers growing up, and then suddenly, for the first time, I'm introduced to bell hooks. I'm introduced to Hollywood. I'm introduced to the term white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. And so now I've been given this excellent education, and I feel so liberated and happy and excited. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like my friends, the white people around me, are going to be so happy to hear about all of my new thoughts. Like, they eat kale and go to the farmer's market. They can't be racist. Like, no, this is all going to be so great. It's so excited. And then what happened when I try to speak about these issues, try to talk about like, oh my gosh, like, do you know about all this structural oppression? Do you know about, oh my gosh, like, I'm here, I made it, and my, path was so difficult, and like, there are people who had different than I had. They didn't have the same privilege that I had. They didn't have the same benefits. And I'm like, if I barely got to this point, oh shit, now I see it, now I get it. And I was like so excited to talk about these things, because when you realize who you are and you get a new concept of your identity, you want to share that. And that is when I found out that I was like extra black. Like I was made into the other. I'd never really felt other than these spaces because I had been a part of them, and I had been so used to like not having these conversations, not acknowledging like specifically my racial identity, or just being something that's like, oh yeah, that's no big deal. Like I understand, we accept you. But now I was like actually talking about like how this identity and how my background has shaped me, how like I'm actually going, oh, you know what? I did like listen to a lot of jokes and accept a lot of jokes that were kind of not okay because it was just easier and because like I didn't want to lose my friends. But now I'm here. Now I'm safe. Now we all know how fucked up that is, and let's talk about it. And it was like, you're making me uncomfortable. Or are you sure? I've never experienced that. Like just all of the classics came up, and I'm like, but wait, I only know about this stuff because I'm here at this school that you're also at, and you've had access to this knowledge for like longer, and you've like made some of these references. So how is it that you've been exposed to these ideas and these concepts? And how is it that my cute little face is on the brochure, and you're like so excited to So yeah, like I for 4 years in UCLA, I transferred in, did 2 years, immediately went to the grad program. Again, always looking, like I was like, I'm gonna find the promised land somehow. Don't listen. People will, like, the more educated you are, like I was always looking for something. Like if you know more stuff, then you're gonna be like less racist, less sexist. And I had already kind of dealt with sexism. I kind of felt more like, okay, I'm understanding that, but I was still like, I was the only Black person in the space for so long. I wanted to talk about it, and I was like eating a lot of shit sandwiches, not realizing that I didn't have to eat them, not feeling like I had any other option, and part of that was because I had not established a community of people who either had the same background or at least had done the work to really engage and understand and teach themselves and educate themselves and learn to listen. And so I was kind of like, I felt like the lone soldier, and that was incredibly draining. Because what happened is, by the time that I got to this point, I had for years been kind of making myself smaller. And so when you finally get to embrace your identity, and people are trying to shove you back into that box, just telling you to shut up, telling you to be quiet, telling you it makes them uncomfortable, I got to a space where I just couldn't do it. It wasn't like, well, I could maybe, no, I mean, I was yelling all the time. I was like daily having arguments with people, trying to teach them, like kind of desperately trying to teach them, because I felt like I don't have another space. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, even when I went to grad school, I was the first and the only Black woman who had ever been admitted to the program. There was no Black faculty. You know, there were maybe, I could count on my hands still, I was there for 4 years, the number of Black people I saw, even in our gallery when we had art shows, you know. So I was just like, well, where am I gonna go? And the more I felt like, and I think that that's a pretty common experience, when you start getting into activism, when you start just, even if you're not activist, so to speak, once you start consuming information, once you see how shitty things are, you can't unsee it and you can't turn away anymore. So I think initially, the more that I took in, the more I felt overwhelmed, because it was like, wow, there's really no place I can go. There's really no space that is safe. There are no communities. And this is not totally true, but that's how I felt at the time. And I started to put that into my work. Originally, I went to school because I wanted to be a game designer. Because of my experience at UCLA with all of this pushback and just like the people that I expected to support me, the people who I thought respected me and who would, you know, be there for me, weren't. I ended up trying to cope with that experience and trying to figure out somewhat, like I had to deal with it. So I put it into my work, and that's how this last year I started to, oh my gosh, I did a few things. I developed, namely, what you have in your hands, I developed this Whitey Bulger character, because I had kind of done some things where I was staging these interventions, and I was like yelling, I was like being very like forceful about like asserting my position and speaking my mind, but it was still draining for me, again, because I couldn't find some way. It still was like the burden was on me, and there was nobody to really share that. And I was also looking at other work by, you know, Black artists, and Black artists still weren't really well represented, but I saw that most of the work that I had seen celebrated in sort of my sphere was always about oppression, was always about like, oh, I'm Black, and my life is sad, and I've been oppressed, and like, and then it's like white people looking at me like, yes, you were, I feel pain. Now let's go home. Like, good. Like, and it was this kind of like pat on the back feeling of like, I've acknowledged your pain. Now I'm gonna go have cocktails. And that just drove me nuts, because I still felt like, well, I don't want to make the kind of work that when I look at my oppression is like reinforced. I want to find some way to get rid of the oppression. I want to get out of the shit. Like, I think that it should be like on the oppressor to feel horrible, and I should get to like dance and run free. So I ended up making this caricature of a white man, and strangely, I ended up making a character by accident. Like, I wasn't trying to seek that out. I was actually doing research looking for characters of white men, and I couldn't find any. Like, did not exist. And I was like, the internet exists. Everything exists on the internet. How is there nothing to like just because when we talk about like white men or the man, there's this like nebulous idea, but there was nothing that was just like, boom, it's that guy. It's that guy who did that to you, it's that guy who like made that trolling comment. Like, and so that was kind of my way of trying to push back and maybe feel like I had some way to redirect the stress that I was feeling and again, put it where it belongs to me. I made this character and I was sent to the dean's office. And it's not like I was just studying like, I don't know, accounting, like I'm in an arts program. They're like, your work is so provocative. I'm like you told me that's what I'm like, this is not what I'm supposed to do. So I'm just gonna show this work too. I was sent to the dean's office. I did not have a lot of support for this work in the community around me. And it really took a toll. I mean, I graduated and I was able to fight. I was able to like maybe convince some people, but at the end of the day, the best case scenario, when you're engaging with folks and you're educating them, the best case scenario, which is not the most common scenario, is that they do learn and they do grow, but it's still at your expense. Even recently, I've had conversations with like even mentors of mine, people who really care for me, that I'm like, hey, your awareness does not fill me up. These awareness cookies do not satisfy. Like, I can't be responsible for your education. This is also another thing, something that I think gets specialized a lot, especially for Black women, is like, oh, you're so strong. Like, you've been teaching, like, you're so strong. Like, there's a pat on the back. Like, that's supposed to be something. I'm like, but I may be strong, yes, but I also just deserve to be happy. So let's focus on that. So when you do a shitty thing, like, it's not about how I was able to take all the bullshit that's thrown at me. Like, how can I be happy? And so, more recently, I've been working on, people ask me what you're working on. I'm like, I'm not working on jack shit right now. What I'm working on is developing a community and learning how to engage with self-care, because it's so necessary. And that's like listening to Seren, listening to Patricia, like, that is so, so important. I know, because I am the poster child for 4 years taking in this information. And even before that, like, so much internalized misogyny, so much internalized anti-Blackness, so much like buying into this concept that I was inferior and I had to prove to others that I had inherent value. Not knowing it myself because I didn't have a connection to, positive communities. And like, this is something that the only way that I sort of started to create it is that because I didn't feel I had any physical space, and I also didn't feel like I was drained to the point where I was afraid to venture into certain spaces, even like joining, feminist groups or even joining women of color groups, because I was just kind of like, I don't know what to expect. I'm scared, and I'm just gonna kind of hermit. But what I did start to do is I started to engage with my Facebook page sincerely. Like, I let it be the platform for me to yell, for me to talk about everything I was experiencing, to be very vocal about Black Lives Matter, to when, oh my God, when Sandra Bland, I can't even really talk about it still, but like, I would go on these huge, honest, raw, like emotional rants, and like, this is my community, and I worried about what people will think of me. I'm worried about the person who's going to tell me, oh, you're engaging in reverse racism, all that nonsense. And I got that. I got a little bit of that, but I started to think of Facebook as, people talk about, I had a conversation yesterday, people talk about like Facebook as trolls. Trolls talk about Facebook as being like this public space, and we're like, oh, if you put something out there on Facebook, then like, you should accept that people are going to have these other opinions, no matter how shitty they are, and like, whatever, I'm allowed to speak. And I started to think, no, fuck that. Facebook is like maybe one of the safe spaces I have. And I do think it's, it's a private space. I think of it as like my digital fucking house. It's my living room, because like anybody who's on my Facebook page, they're there willingly. They're not trapped there. So maybe I didn't lock my doors. Maybe you stepped inside my house. It doesn't mean you get to shit on my rug because you don't like the way I live and you don't like the things that I say. What you do as a decent, respectful fucking person is you say, oh, I don't like it here. Excuse me, I'll leave. You don't get to, colonize my space and tell me like anything I'm talking about, whether it's Sandra Bland or dumb picture of my cat. Like, this is my space to just exist as myself. And I did have some pushback, but I learned the power of blocking. I learned the power of just letting go of people who like
are shitty and don't, maybe they're not even shitty, but they don't deserve, I do not owe it to anybody to just give them my time and let them shit all over my spaces. And what I was left with, honestly, was like a lot of people who would come up to me at parties, like acquaintances who said, I love your writing. The things that you say are so powerful. I wish I was brave enough to do that. You know, people who like, you know, message me, like random friends from school, people who I'd only talked to a few times who ask for my advice or tell me that they're trying, that they're learning. And so I found that by engaging in my space and being protective of it, that, you know, by pushing out the most harmful elements, it actually was something that started to be healed. I really like felt like I was asserting my own space, and then I was able to allow for people who were treating me well, who were, you know, giving me that positive reinforcement. And so that's been kind of my baby step into creating my own nurturing space, and also doing things like this and trying to connect with, you know, other people who are on the same page. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
My connection so well.
Okay, can you hear, like, should we try something else? I just don't want you to be.
If you try something else, that's fine. I can like kind of hear, like I could just hear, but it's like in and out. So you were trying to call me back, or someone wants to FaceTime me, however you guys want to do it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, we're gonna try that.
I love this.
Yes, stand by, we're gonna try that, yeah, we'll try to figure out.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see?
I can have to see.
Yeah.
So if I FaceTime her, I'm not just like FaceTime.
Yeah, there is a thing, it's like where we.
Wait, come on. Oh.
Yeah, no, we know.
Well, she'd at least be able to hear.
Yeah.
And we can just keep a still of her face.
Yeah.
We can still leave it up and she can have done. Right, okay, done.
Mutes that.
We're gonna mute this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just need her number.
Oh,
she's
you
not
just
gonna
talk
give
over
us
the
the phone. Or give her my number, how about that? You guys don't have my number.
I can see you guys, but I can't hear you.
Okay, cool.
Type it.
So. Oh, wait. We do this. And then,
Okay, so that's 310 741 7347. Do I need to be in a group?
oh, you might have.
Wait, I don't think so. But I'll put it in anyway.
We actually
All the technology. Oh my gosh! This is my birthday. Wait, okay, now you're amplified. Okay, cool. Wait, does that mean you missed my whole emotional? Oh, but you didn't hear me? Okay, so you would have, I can give you the audience. I don't know, you just have to look at me and say.
trying to like.
Oh, it
get
is.
Dublin to be like an LA centric and not just.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Cool. Now everybody's.
I'm trying to like.
Can you see everyone? Oh, I guess I should maybe add one more thing about, because I know I kind of went on these tangents. So the thing about whitey vulgar, like I've had many, you know, intersectionality, sometimes you butt up against different groups, yada, yada, yada. I decided for me, like ethically and morally, that I would only ever, like I mean, you can talk shit about people on a personal level, but rhetorically and politically, I will only ever attack white men. One, because they're the top of the social hierarchy, so they can take it. And two, like even when other groups, I think, transgress and do something wrong, I feel like if you're not a white man, you're just a part of the rest of us, and we're all kind of struggling for these dignity scraps. So I just don't feel like personally, I just won't attack anybody from any other group, because I feel like until everybody is able to have the luxury of empathy, the luxury of like self-care and support, I just personally don't want to be a part of like, you know, jumping on anybody. Also, I don't criticize Stacey that too much either. So there you go.
And like, just to kind of build off of what having your like, pre-blocking is amazing and will like free you. Anytime someone tells you like, oh, this person said something to me that I didn't take very well, or this person has been known for being annoying, harassing, like obnoxious towards people who are, you know, not white males, like just pre-block them. Don't feel bad about it. Don't think about it. You don't need to know what they had to say. Like build a wall and keep those people out of like even looking at your front door.
Yes, I agree. I preemptively block so many people. It's not even my block list, like on Twitter, my block list is insane. As soon as I see something, I'm just like, oh, block, just in case one day I ever come across you, ever come across me, you're already preemptively blocked. It really, like, block is one of the best functions ever. And on YouTube has a lot of loopholes where you can get around blocks, which a lot of people, I get people that ask me all the time, like, oh, I blocked this person, or I know you blocked this person, but this person can like still talk to me, or still hit me up, they can still email me. And I have to tell them, like, well, YouTube has these loopholes where if you reply to someone directly, even if they're blocked from the channel, they can still talk to you within that thread. I don't know how familiar you guys are with YouTube, but YouTube implemented this thing now where they have comment threads. So even if you block someone from your channel, they can keep talking to you within that same exact thread. And I know I went through something similar on Tumblr where this guy was like harassing me, and I supposedly had blocked him, and he kept writing me, and Tumblr was like, oh, well, as long as you write him back, even if it's just to say leave me alone, you can hit that reply button and like reply back. So sometimes it's best to just preemptively block, because a lot of these, especially on social media and online, they have these weird loopholes where once you start interacting with that person, even after you block them, they can continue to interact with you. So sometimes it's better to just like nip it in the bud and like block them as soon as you can. So I definitely 100% agree with that. It's just like a rabbit hole that you fall down.
Well, what's like so interesting to me is I feel like I personally am so conditioned and have been conditioned to like give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's where that like, you know, it's like something in my brain that says, oh, but I can't possibly just like not give this a person response. What if? It's almost this like, but what if this one time this person was different? It wasn't going to say something awful. And it's like, I'm learning to just, I mean, again, like the power of the block, like I recently discovered that. I'm like, wow, like my feed is so clean. But this comment section is just so nice. It's like, oh, I blocked people. And it's like, you know what? That's amazing. And you know what? Another thing is you're always going to have another opportunity. There's always going to be another asshole for you to like block. So it's not like there's a never ending stream of people popping up. So it's not like that opportunity's missed. Maybe one day if you feel generous, like you can try, and unless there's an awful
But, oh no, blocking, this is my block, so, yeah. I agree with that.
And I also want to say, another online tool that I know a lot of people are not that familiar with is blacklisting. Because I know a lot of people that don't even know on YouTube, for example, you can blacklist terms so that people that use those terms, they immediately go directly into your spam folder. And a lot of people don't even know about that function. And I think Twitter might have a similar function. I'm not as familiar. You can literally put slurs, you can put curse words. Like on mine, I have like bitch definitely in mine. Certain like homophobic slurs, racial slurs, of course, so that if you even attempt to leave a comment with one of those slurs, that automatically goes into the spam folder. And I had people message me like, oh, you deleted my comment, blah, 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 blah. And I wrote them back like, I didn't delete your comment. You must have used a word that's on my blacklist because it goes directly into my spam folder. And then I go look at my spam folder, I'm like, lo and behold, there's the comment with you calling like black people monkeys, because I have like monkey, chimp, I have all those on my blacklist. And then it's like you, again, it's almost like concern trolling, like you're claiming like, oh, but I deleted my comment and I was trying to have like a dialogue, and it's like, no, you liar. Blacklist, so I never even saw your comment. Like, and honestly, once you start, like, there are tools, but you really have to like learn, you know, how to use these tools in the way to best, you know, use the functionality for yourself. That YouTube, for example, also has a report all the spam button, where you can literally like put the check mark, click someone's name, and report all their posts as spam, and you will never get a post from them again. But again, like you said, kind of you have to get into the mind state of being proactive, of like, I don't have to give this person a benefit of the doubt. I'm just gonna like mark off all of it as like trash and just take that, you know, accept the responsibility for that. And I don't know, it would be interesting to talk to a man about this, because I don't know if it's something that's more ingrained maybe in women to want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Because I know I have also had conversations with men that I know, and they don't even feel anything. They're just like, yeah, I love him, I don't care. Where I know for me, it took me a while to get to that point also of like, well, no, maybe, I don't know, you know. So it's really an interesting thing to think about as well.
Well, even the men that, you know, are spewing for me, it's mostly men spewing these kind of, this vitriol. And not that it can't be other people, but oftentimes when I'm engaging with somebody who just doesn't check their opinion at all, just enters the conversation full force, like, this is some nonsense that I have to say that I like confidently and like arrogantly believe in and like take it. It's like, I've had, you know, these thoughts. I'm like, okay, why does this keep happening with a certain kind of person? I'm like, is it really just that you've never, I mean, this also goes to one of my rules of like if you're not like the word ally, but I'm using, you know what it means? Like, step one is shut the fuck up. And I mean, shut the fuck up. Like, the fuck is in there to indicate the urgency. Like, if there's a fire and we're all talking, I say, shut the fuck up. And you would go, oh, but she was mean. You'd go, oh, she's saving us from a fire. So that, like, for me is the urgency of that. And like, I have had to tell people that casually, not yell at them, like, oh, well, you should be STFU. And it's like, well, if I have to shut the fuck up, then I guess I'll just walk away. I guess, and I'm like, okay, really? Because I'm so used to being quiet. I'm so used to having to like check like 5 times, like, how does this person do me? Is this rational? Is this logical? Am I being emotional? Before I even get to the point of speaking, that shutting the fuck up just isn't that hard for me. It doesn't offend me. It's not. There's a time and place for it. And I wonder, like, if you just have not experienced life where, you know, your opinion, not your well-informed opinion, like not your educated anything, just your opinion has this like inherent like validity. I feel like that must have a lot to do with it, because shutting up just isn't that hard, like, to me. Like,
yeah, I was just gonna say it really quick because I want to hear what you have to say too. But like, don't think of it as blocking. Think of it as like they're no longer entitled to hear what you have to say. Because thinking of it as blocking is like thinking of it as like being exclusive and not being inclusive. You kind of put the onus on yourself, and you start to look at it as like, oh, but like, I feel bad because I'm excluding them from being within this circle, right? And it's not that. It's that they don't deserve to be in that space, and it's
it's sad that it's your responsibility, but like for your own safety, just don't include them. So I don't think of it as blocking, I think of it as like not including, but especially with like the YouTube, I definitely want to hand back the torch to you because you haven't gotten to speak yet, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm enjoying hearing, I talk about myself like a lot, I find, like in similar contexts as this, so it's really interesting for me to hear other people talk about their experiences, because I feel like I don't meet that many people who have had similar experiences as I have. So I guess I'm kind of different than everyone in the sense that you all are talking about how you use social media in like your real lives as your real selves, and I've never been really brave enough to kind of do that. So I've been on social media always as like another self, like as a character or just another person, and that's for me how I like navigate this terrain, because I feel like for myself, like I can't bring all these crazy people that I know are out there into my Facebook, into my Twitter, into all that stuff. So when I kind of choose to put myself out there, it's always as a different version of myself. So it's not like my real life. So that's kind of my ultimate block in a way, like blocking. And then also I'm different than you guys because I think I'm a bit older than you. So it's so funny. So we're gonna go like way back in time to 2008, which is in internet years, like so long ago. It was really a different landscape back then, and because kind of I had my YouTube channel that went viral in 2008, and it was a really different time back then, and I feel like I experienced what you all are experiencing now, 8 years ago. So I feel like I'm kind of like on this, in a ways on this other side, I've kind of come out, because I spent years grappling with a lot of these same things, although I think it was really different in some ways too, because of the nature of the internet and who I am and everything. So I was in my MFA program, and in 2008, I just decided I wanted to like express myself on the internet, and what would that look like? And I grew up in a very conservative background. I went to Jewish day school, and you weren't allowed a lot of freedom. It was very conservative, so I was never. So you always wanted to be like a smart little Jewish girl, and that meant like you couldn't be like a sexual person. So I was always a really horny kid, so I was like doing stuff with boys, but I felt really ashamed about it. So in 2008, I saw YouTube. I was like, whoa, I can like be on here and like express my sexuality, and it's like relatively safe because it's online. There's this like barrier for me, so I can do that. This is so amazing. And I also saw YouTube as this like potential utopia and like change in the way that people see one another, because in old models of media, right, you have the one-to-many mode of media, which is TV, film, magazines. So like one person or corporation deciding how a certain people are going to be represented. And now with YouTube, I was like, wow, we can like take this power back, and we can represent ourselves, and this is going to be this revolution. It's going to be so amazing. I wrote this manifesto, and I was just like, I'm going to like go online and do stuff and express my real self, and like my hope is that in years to come, like everyone will, like a really diverse population will, and that will kind of lead to like a more progressive world. And I think and I wrote that in 2009, and I really do think that since then a lot has changed for the better in a lot of ways. I mean, there's just like in 2008, if you called yourself a feminist, people would be like, ew, why are you calling yourself that? That's disgusting. I would never call myself a feminist. And now obviously just the cultural climate has changed. But, and then also I want to say similar to experience you've had, like when I was doing this project at my MFA, so I was going viral, and then my teachers, a lot of my teachers were telling me, why are you doing this? This is stupid. Like I literally had one teacher say to me, you're a smart bunny, like you can be doing something smarter than this. And this was like compounded by the fact that I was being like trolled a lot on YouTube, which like in 2008, there was really no precedent for that. Like there was no awareness about this. Like people would see my comment, like my friends would see my comments and be like, we're really worried about you. And so it was just a really, really scary, intense time for me. I had someone blackmailing me, and that got really dark, and threats and stuff. But also like good things too. But I think that kind of what I learned from that experience over those years was that 99% of like threats like aren't real in any basis. People really just want to scare you because they want you to shut up. So I would just, whenever so now I meet a lot of people who now are dealing with like these kinds of things, and they get really freaked out because people are like, I'm gonna rape you and kill you, and that can be really scary. When you're the first time you're hearing it, I was like, don't but so I'm just like, look, nothing's gonna happen to you. They literally just want to silence you. They want to scare you. So I always just say, just keep going. Just don't pay attention to them. Do your own thing, but just keep going. Don't let them silence you. It's just about always having your own voice, because like in my Utopian Manifesto, like that's the important thing for really a diverse population to be expressing their different voices, their different opinions, because I think ultimately that's what's going to break down all these barriers. Yeah, and then well, I also wanted to talk about something just a little off topic, but I don't know, I think it's relevant. So I have all these like weird characters, right? And I also have this like day job that I've had for like a year and a half, and my day job found out that all my characters and things like weren't very happy with them. And they almost fired me, but I'm just too good at my job. And so, but as a result of them finding me out, essentially, I had to make my Twitter private. I had to change some stuff on my website. I made my Instagram private. So it's kind of like corporate troll. I don't know. Like it's just such a weird thing that it's like I really do live these two lives, like my art life and this like job life, and it's just always weird being at my job, and I have this totally unacceptable life that they all just like, I'm not allowed to. I'm not like, they found out about this, and it was the head of HR, and he was just like, okay, we know about this, and that's it. Like you can't talk about this with your coworker. And then kind of along the same lines, so I have two projects. So I did this project in 2008, the YouTube project, and more recently I had this website called For Little Feminist, and that was a website that had a bunch of videos of me, and a lot of them were very provocative. Like I show like my hairy vagina, like that's the video. It's like my vagina has glasses on it. It's doing some stuff, and it's like pornography. So it's a risque site. And my original web host, which I've used for years and years, Fat Cow. I had like 4 sites with them over the course of, I don't know, 7 years, and they were just like, oh, we can't host this website. So I go look in their terms of service. There's nothing that says no adult content. And so I write to them and I copy and paste the terms of service. I'm like, there's nothing that says you can't post this. Literally the next day they changed their terms of service. They said like no adult content, and we can decide at our discretion what goes on here. So they're like, well, and they're a really good deal. I've had them for so long. All my content is up there, so I don't want to switch. I don't want to take down my project. And they're like, under no circumstances will we host this. You have to take it down. Anyways, I have to switch web hosts, but I also had had another project. It's an app for iTunes. It's an ebook, but it's in the form of an app. And it's about my experience when I was 12 years old in an online relationship with a 27-year-old man. But it's all text-based. And that app was up for about 3 months on the iTunes store, and it got like a little bit of press. And then they took it down, and they said that it was proven objectionable, and under no circumstances would they put it back up. And it was very frustrating because, you know, they have Lolita on there, but so it's just like, well, when it's from young girls, it's fine if the guy is like saying how he's exploiting some girl, but if a girl is saying how, you know, about her side of the story, then it's like, oh no, we can't have that. So again, this is like this corporate trolling that I've been dealing with, and that's why it makes me so mad all the time when I hear like men, you know, the feminists, they're censoring me, you know, like if any woman is like, if they're just like, if any woman says anything negative about what a man is doing, oh, they're censoring me, and it's like, that makes me so mad. It's like, no, your work is out there, people can see your work, like literally my work is the one being censored. So, okay, those are just random thoughts.
That's great.
I think no, but it's also good. I have that kind of stuff happen to me all the time. Like the new thing on YouTube is they demonetize videos with sensitive content, but there's no. They basically wrote an algorithm. I don't know if you guys are that familiar with like the new YouTube Red thing, where they're rolling out a version of YouTube that doesn't have ads, where people can pay for it, like $5 a month or $10 a month. So they wrote this new algorithm, basically that it goes through content and it looks for keywords. So like terrorism, racism, shooting, bombing, school shooting, you know, things like that. And if the algorithm finds that word in your title, in your description box, in your tags, it automatically demonetizes your content. Automatically. And you have to fill out a form and send it to YouTube for them to review your content and put the monetization back. I have like 6 videos get demonetized in like only a couple of days. And I wrote this like really angry email to like YouTube, corporate, HR, whatever, where I was like, you know, you guys are punishing people that want to talk about, you know, certain types of topics. And like if I just wanted to do comedy sketches, or, you know, makeup tutorials or hair tutorials, which is not to say there's anything wrong with that, but if I wanted to like do those types of things, it would be fine. Since I want to talk about feminism or race or, you know, police brutality, my videos get flagged for sensitive content and my videos get demonetized, and it isn't fair. And I was like, you know, and there's nothing similar, you know, there's nothing in your, you know, terms of contract, there's no type of definitive what is sensitive content, and they ended up putting it on my monetization back, so it was like scathing email, and I was gonna like sue them and this and that. So I was to say that kind of the flip side too of corporate trolling is that sometimes you can like scare them, you can like use their own almost stuff against them. I had this other guy that was trolling me on YouTube, and he was using my content in his videos. He was like chop and screwing my videos and replying. So we would have like me saying something, and then it would be like him with a response, and then like me saying something, and then like him with a response. So I was like, listen, you can't use my content in your videos without my permission. And he's like, well, if I'm using it for learning purposes, I can use it, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up going through YouTube's code like conduct, and I copied, pasted the same thing, like the portions. I was like, if you use more than 1 minute, which right here you use 2 uninterrupted minutes, 3 uninterrupted minutes, like I'm gonna fucking sue you. And then it got like mysteriously, his video disappeared and was taken down. So sometimes you do just blocking people and ignoring it. Sometimes it's not even enough. You have to like fight dirty, fight fire with fire. Like sometimes you do have to go on the offense. And I will say that pre-YouTube, I haven't been on YouTube very long, but pre-YouTube, when I was in college and when I was in high school, I was actually on this message board. It was like a very dirty, like, it was full of like hackers
people used to like dox each other for fun on this message board and like send 10 pizzas to someone's like real life address. Like I was on this message board where people played very dirty. So I have to say that I'm also the type that like if I'm not blocked straight up, I'm gonna go on the offense and I'm like I always win these games. I'm gonna troll a troll, like I'm gonna out troll you. Like you don't know the forum that I used to be on where people used to dox each other and hack each other for fun. Like you're not gonna out troll me. So you do sometimes have to have in your back pocket that you might have to go on the offense because you know there are going to be people that try to corporate troll you. They're trying to like use these rules and regulations against you. So you also have to be really aware of like the rules, the terms of service, you know, the codes of conduct. Because like you said, if they technically didn't have anything against what you posted, they had to literally change it. So that's definitely a way to go on the offense and protect yourself for sure. And I tell people all the time in my videos, like, know your rights, know the laws of every single site that you're on. And I also wanted to say, going back to it's not blocking, it's, you know, you don't have the right to talk to me. I like literally say that in a couple videos too, like you don't have the right to speak to me. Like you don't have permission to speak to me anymore. That's really a great way also of thinking about it. It's just like, you don't have permission. I'm gonna try to preemptively block you, but if you want to keep attacking me, like I am gonna go on the offense and I'm gonna like use this shit against you. You're just not gonna win, period. Like a lot of people think, especially with women and with women of color, that oh, we don't know any better. We're just gonna like freak out and disappear and be quiet. And a large part of also, you know, protecting yourself is sometimes going on the offense and saying like, hey, no, I'm not gonna shut up. I'm not gonna go away. Too bad. Like, sorry. Like, so that I love what you had to say. It was awesome.
Yeah, so I have a kind of controversial method of dealing with trolls. I made it up. It's called frilling, and basically what it is it's flirting as a form of trolling. I have found that people find that really confusing and aggravating. Like if people just say something and you just flirt back, they don't really know what to do with that, and they'll just kind of disappear and be confused. I don't know, but it depends on the situation. I found that works in real life even better.
Yeah, like, when people reach out and like when people start to troll, I was gonna say like, I totally just forgot. I'm sorry. Your frilling just like messed with my head.
I think I was just thinking, you know, about the word trolling, and just re-examining that because like when we say trolls, it's often it's like, oh, this like bad person who's already again is being intellectually dishonest, all these things, and it kind of creates this space. But part of like my experience is like people you know can also troll you in spaces that like you want to be in, where you can't just, you know, for whatever reason get away. And I just to kind of what you're saying is I find that yelling works, and I like tell this to everybody. Like I have like 3 basic rules, and one of them is like yell like all the fucking yelling, because what's great about yelling is that people, because they don't like to feel uncomfortable, will tell you. That's not a I'm also like the queen of like reply all on email chains. Like I will reply to everybody. There will be no secrets. There will be no but I'm like no. Like I want my shit all out there because I want that shit documented. So I'm like, you know, people will tell you, oh, that's not maybe an appropriate response, or maybe you should do this instead, or you know, you could have said it a different way. But the only way I've ever gotten anything done is by constantly saying, nope, you're wrong, nope, that's shitty, and making a big fucking deal. And I think like there is something, I also think this is very gendered, like about not being dramatic, not making a big deal, because there's like that scared of drama. And I'm like, I'm totally fine with drama. I don't care about drama. Like I am fine, especially as a press person with conflict. Conflict means that some shit's gonna get done and there will be progress. That's an opportunity. So like I am totally about people like don't feel bad like, oh, but I said no, you said something that needs to be said. And like when there's not conflict and when there's not drama in processes, I tend to assume that means it's not a diverse space. That's like there's systems in place, there are institutions in place made for certain people. And, you know, like, I think if there's like a slide that was like made for a certain butt, and like, just like, some people just like slide down it, but if your butt's a little bit different, bigger, then you kind of gotta like, you know, wrangle some things. Like, yeah, you gotta don't be fucking afraid to like, just say and yell and like push forward, because like, you know, I've had people that I felt like were trolling me, you know, in different spaces over these people, like, especially when I've been to school, so I'm like seeing the same faces, and like, I've seen some of those same people who years ago may have said something like completely absurd to me, over time go, oh, hey, yeah, you're right. So, you know, it does, that's like one little drop in that bucket, like, again, an awareness cookie, like an awareness crumb, but like, it does make a difference and it does work. So.
And like another thing that works too, which goes hand in hand with the yelling and the thrilling, is also like humiliating them, like retweeting what they tweeted at you, like with a quote, and being like, ha ha ha, look at this guy who thinks he's really smart, and like putting them on the spot. I don't know if you guys know about or have heard about the reporter Sarah Jiang. She's like really big on Twitter, and she deals with harassment day in and day out. And I love when she like retweets what the dumb people say, because then I'm like, cool, someone else I can block. Someone else that I don't want to listen to.
Pretty empty block.
Yeah. And like one of my other personal
I
heroes.
also want to say though that, well, one, I think that there's kind of two different standards, like for real life in your face trolls and like online internet trolls. But 9 times out of 10, I feel like it's obviously easier to block someone on the internet, where if you do is push a button. Like, you can't push a button and block someone like in real life when they're talking to you in your face. So I'm definitely team.
I'm working on that.
In real life, like I'm very confrontational. I don't let shit slide, like especially in real life. But I will also say that I feel like it takes a certain type of person to be able to do that. Like not everyone is built to do that. Like not everyone is necessarily built. Like even with online spaces, like not everyone is necessarily built to like drag people all day on Twitter. Like some people find that mentally draining, some people find that emotionally draining, and I know for a lot of people that gets pushed as kind of like the standard way to deal with trolls, like to humiliate them, but not everyone can do that. So I do like saying to people, like, if you're not that type of person, like if that's not in your own personal headspace, like feel free to just like block them. Like feel free, like you don't have to like all day engage with these people and just like fucking with you, you know? Like I'm pretty sure that all of us for the most part are like mentally tough. You have to have a certain amount of mental toughness, I would say. Well, I don't like feeling like people, I don't like when people feel forced into doing things just because like so pressed that like I'm okay with doing it. Like it's also okay to just like block, you know? But I think people tend to like drag people. And
Well,
then
that's why I like have the group
later, you know?
like the group, like I can take a break sometimes. Like honestly, when I started doing, like I was like exhausted. I was like, I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to talk to any of you. Leave me alone. I'm gonna go hide in my cave. Like I wasn't on Twitter until like July basically, because when I was like socially on Twitter in April when I like quit my job. And then when I started getting involved, like people started adding me and stuff, and I was just like, nope, not dealing with this, deleting my Twitter, like never coming back. And then I kind of had to like come back out. But like my personal hero is this woman who works in New York City, and she has a huge Twitter presence, Jen Schiffer. She works for a consulting firm called Boku, and she's like probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. She's insanely talented and insanely intelligent. And she writes satire about like dealing with this kind of stuff, and nobody understands that it's satire, and they all take it literally. And so she has trolls coming at her like all day long, like machine gun fire trolls at her. And she's like my personal hero because she will humiliate, and she will like throw things back at them, and she will like post another satirical article about them. But you can't always have that energy, and so like. Sometimes I just like, I'm like, hey
Jen, look at this person over here. And she will just like go and take care of it. And then sometimes, like my friend Brenna, she'll be like, I really want to do this. And I was like, no, I'll take care of it. Like, I think that's what's so important about that. Because, like, yeah, you don't want to, sometimes your space is your space and you want it to be respected and you don't want to, like, have to have a conversation. Like, you don't want to have to talk to the person. Like, you just want to, like, push them out the door.
But that's the thing too. I find that like a lot of times when I'm talking about social justice stuff, I'm like, it's not even just the initial act, right? It's like not like even with those, like not even just the first like offensive thing. It's like having to have the conversations that you even get to the point to acknowledge like, no, you did something wrong. And then having to constantly assert yourself. And like that can wear down on you, especially like people are at different stages. Like, yeah, I would love to get to a place and I feel like I'm getting there where I'm just like, yeah, I can laugh at you, ha ha ha. But sometimes it can reinforce and make you question like, well, is it valid again? Because so many of these things are internalized. But when you have even like one person, and that's why I say when I said like I'm focusing on support and care, like I mean it because I have online work that I have been sitting on. I was online in 2008 and I was a doctorate in a gaming community, like just gaming. I'm in gaming, okay? And like I got all those like, I was called all kinds of slurs just for dating somebody, like so I kind of that made me shut down for many years of like, oh, the internet is not a safe place. I can't be public. I can't do these things. And so I'm trying to build back up to that. But I see how necessary it is to have even just one person. Like you kind of need your posse so someone can jump in there and just like validate what you're saying and articulate the arguments that if you weren't like burning with rage, you would be able to say. And then you kind of tag team, and that is so helpful. And like again, I think it's really important for us to be able to people who are vocal, people who want to live our lives and live it fully and express the full range of our like dignity or humanity. I think it's absolutely essential that we are able to build a community that nourishes us because to me personally, my existence is draining. Like even without me saying a word, without me even fighting back, like just to take in like, oh, who got killed today? Who got, assaulted today? I am drained. And as soon as I like, invest in anybody, if I have a conversation with you, even if I'm angry, even if I just say fuck off, to me that's a fucking investment in your growth. That is still something I'm giving. So I feel like I'm always giving out these little nuggets and opportunities for people to grow. But then who's kind of filling you back up? And so it's like protect yourself, but I also reject that it's just a one-person job. Like I think like that whole ideology of like self-responsibility, be totally accountable for your feelings. I think that's some bullshit so people can be assholes and just be like, oh, well, I said some shit to you, so you should be less sensitive, or you should like, it's like,
and like you're not dealing with it, so therefore you're the one with the problem and not the person who it's coming from.
Exactly, like, and that already is so selfish and it's not community-minded, and like, and like everything you're saying about having a community. This was an open question about like, how did you form your communities? Because especially in your video about like cutting people off, you'd say, oh, I cut all these people off. I'm like, if I cut all these people off, there's this fear no one will be left. So how do I replace this with people? Like,
I cut so many people off that it's not even funny. I replaced a lot of people through the internet because I kind of got to that same place where I was like, I'm spending so much energy on like trolls, but I'm not really kind of getting that energy back, and I'm not putting enough energy into creating safe spaces. Kind of like the backstory to that was I had a video go viral. I did a video on the Baltimore riots that was viral. Like as of right now, this video had like 200,000 views, and the vast majority of those views I got in like 1 month. Like the video was like went crazy, and it's funny because like trolls are community minded. Like you will get a whole crew of like trolls attacking. Like my video got posted on 4chan, and it made it to the front page, however that works, and it was on the front page of 4chan for like 2 weeks. So I was literally every second of every day. That video, okay, like so you guys know that video, I have the likes and the dislikes turned off, but that video has over 6,000 downloads. Like I was getting like slammed like every second of every day for like a solid 2 weeks. So at first I'm trying to like keep up and I'm trying to like respond to these people, but it's literally like they come and they hit you in waves because they all work together. It's like a community of trolls. So I just started thinking like, well, what if I like apply this same mindset to like building opened up a community of like support, which is why I started moderating comments. And I ended up having some approved users, people that I know that they always leave good comments, so like their comments on that can be approved. And I just started like building a space where people know that they can come and they can have conversations, and they don't have to worry about getting called slurs and getting called this and getting called that. And I just started realizing like the more energy I spend in like actually building a safe community, and the less energy I spend trying to like individually like take care of each of these trolls, like the better I feel. Because I'm not just constantly spending energy, I'm actually getting energy back. I'm actually having conversations, having, you know, meaningful conversations and dialogue, and coming up with solutions with people in my comment section. I'm not just like constantly dealing with trolls all day. So it's definitely, a lot of it is finding a balance. It's not doing too much of any one thing, because otherwise, yeah, you will burn out. Like, you will burn out. And I think that's with any type of activism, or kind of like what I said in my video, like you're constantly on the negative all the time, you're just gonna burn out and you're just gonna have nothing left. You're just gonna like run into your cave and like not deal with anybody. So I think it's really important to just constantly not just give, but like have people in your circle. And again, that might be online. Like I've made so many friends through YouTube, Tumblr. I didn't have Twitter or Instagram until I made YouTube, and my subscribers like forced me. But I've gotten like just met so many cool people, and then met them in real life and ended up becoming friends with them. You know, people that are even if not necessarily like-minded, are open-minded and are willing to have conversations and are willing to have dialogue. And I had a lot of people in my real life when I first started making videos and I first kind of started getting more into activism that were just not, they were not open-minded. And again, even though they weren't necessarily trolls, I kind of felt like they were real life trolling me just because of the things that they would say to me. And it was just like, you're the same thing, like you're taking so much out of me. Just being around you is exhausting and it's draining. And I don't necessarily want to cut you off when you go, but like I have to. So that was the point that I got to for myself. And I get so many comments from people all the time that are just like, you know, my boyfriend doesn't get it, my girlfriend doesn't get it. Not moms and dads, that's a little bit harder, you know, people you live with and stuff like that. But, you know, this person that I'm choosing to have in my life doesn't get it. And every time I'm around them, they say something hurtful and negative and draining. And I don't know what to do. And it's just like, either cut those people off or just equalize it out. So for every moment you spend with that person trying to educate them, maybe you need to try and find a like-minded person, even if you're just going on Whisper. I don't know if you guys know the app Whisper. Even if you're just going on Whisper, venting to anonymous strangers and having conversations. Again, it's all about finding that line and finding that balance where you're giving, but you're also getting back. I feel like that's super, super important in terms of self-care and dealing with trolls and dealing with microaggressions and just negativity in general, because it will drain you. It will drain you really well.
And you know what will like give you back a lot of that energy is, or at least for me, with the group that I'm a part of, I get a lot of energy back from helping the people, like by being vulnerable and being on there and discussing what it is that is like draining my life. Like we go on and we have a whole room that's just for mental health, and we just talk about, like, we express ourselves and we like let it out and we're vulnerable. And what gives me a lot of energy back is I'm in there all day long supporting the people who need support and who are being vulnerable. And like, it's amazing how much energy you can get from being supportive of people that are in this situation, and how empowering it feels to like help them when they need help, and to like form that bond with somebody. Because like it seems like all of this mess that we're in is, it looks like from the outside, like if you were to look at this conversation from the outside, you might think to yourself like, well, why would you get involved in any of this? Like, other than, you know, you can express yourselves in other ways. And it's like, yeah, sure, that is one way of looking at it. But if you also put some energy into trying to like make this place positive and like have a space where you can go and like dance around while other people are off like having their little arguments, like that is what makes it worth staying in. At least for me, like I'm staying in the tech community because of these women and like because of this community that I've become a part of.
because like it gives me back some satisfaction, and I have like the spring in my step during the day when like someone is having a hard day, and we can all be there for her, and we can all like make her situation not as painful and like not as lonely and not as like, and you know, it'll surprise you because, and I mean, I feel like this is really stupid to have to say this, but like everybody is going through what you're going through. Everybody is like dealing with the problems that you're dealing with, but everybody's too afraid to like be vulnerable and step out and say like, hey, I was victimized, or step out and say like, hey, I'm having a really shitty day because this troll said something really like personal towards me and I'm taking it personally. Like, it's happened to everybody every day, and that's not to say that it means less, that's to say that like we all are capable of understanding that, I feel like.
So that's what I love about social media is like oftentimes, like especially if you're like the only person in the space, like if you're a woman in like, you know, a space dominated by men, or like if you're a black person in a space dominated by white people, like you'll feel like an island, but like you are actually an archipelago. Like there are other people having that same experience, and that's be so validating. And also the dancing. Don't forget, like, because especially somebody mentioned this too, like when you're consuming all this media and you're engaged, like my Facebook feed is like, this bad thing happened to this person. And I made like an intentional point to say, I'm gonna do half social justice, half cat videos. Because like seriously, like I need to laugh, and I like about my identity is not totally defined by all this. Like I care and I can still be aware, but like also this thing's silly. Also, here's a picture of my food. Here's a selfie. Like because I feel like that's more true to my identity. Like I'm a silly, goofy person, and that, you know, demands to be expressed as well. So like.
Yeah, I think a lot of the community stuff for me goes back to what you were saying when you first started talking about this bootstraps idea. I think about that idea a lot as forming like how American, and it forms a lot of like, I think like white privilege. And so I think like the way that the bootstraps idea applies to like internet culture is that this thing where we're islands and we're just supposed to be able to deal with this stuff or go away. But really there's this whole system of like oppression on the internet, which is like working to like oppress us, and so that we can't pull ourselves up our bootstraps, which is like a place like, you know, example is a place like 4chan or like Reddit, which is these organized, systematic places where people can be hateful. So really we're not able to pull ourselves up our bootstrap, I think, unless, you know, we form our own similar communities. And so I really like that. And I felt really alone when I first started making my work in 2008, and as time went on, I started to make my own community. So that was really great. And then also, off of what you were saying, I think that the internet is a tool like any other tool, and I always compare the internet to like a fork. So like a fork can either like feed you and nourish you, or you can stab someone with it. So, but just because like someone stabs you with the fork doesn't mean like you should stop eating with it. So I think that, yeah, you just like when people say, oh, just don't go on it, don't do it, why are you doing this? It's like, well, no, I need to nourish myself. But not everything is going to be solely a positive experience. So you have to deal with negative things to anything that you do in life.
And this whole thing is like finding a way to compromise using that tool and like making it a better tool, you know?
Exactly. And I think when we're able to use the tool in the best way that we can, that's where kind of these like utopian ideals that I have will kind of come up. But when it's this negative place, that's when the fork is stabbing you and we're not using the tool right.
And if you say you're not going to eat with forks anymore, like you can't make the fork better. You have to be involved in you. Yeah, totally.
I think on that note is a great way to start our workshop if we stop energy. I just wanted to talk about the whole okay. See, I only wear these shoes when I know I need my cane, but I like the cane in the back. I just wanted to say as a kind of segue into if you want to stay for a workshop, it can also be whatever format you want. Like if you have specific questions about how to deal with like blacklist words on YouTube for Sarin. Like, I think that could be totally valuable. If you have specific questions, come to any one of the people here. If you want to just sit there and talk amongst yourselves or ask questions up here. I just wanted to say as like a way to close the discussion about making our own community. I don't know if any of you are on Tumblr and know about Blackout Day. I know Saran and Aaliyah do. I was asked by a white like fashion magazine earlier this year what was the most radical thing that I had encountered in 2015. And I was like, oh, Blackout Day on Tumblr, no question, because it showed not only, like 2015 was inundated with Black Lives Matter and us seeing, police brutality and a really awful kind of like the amount of Black suffering in this country. And Blackout Day on Tumblr was like joyous and beautiful and celebrating like gorgeous faces, smiling and posting selfies. And I posted this thing on my Tumblr that just said this blog 100% supports Blackout Day because it seemed like a no-brainer. Like when Blackout Day comes and Black people post selfies, like please blog. Like this is like part of how do we make a community that feels safe. And it's so funny to me that post totally went viral. It has like over 120,000 notes. And there were plenty of trolls attached to it, like, no, we hate Blackout Day and whatever. But I just wanted to say that, like, I think each one of these fantastic speakers in their own way has been cultivating a community that I want to be a part of, and in some ways I am in some of your spaces. And I think that all of you here tonight are like the way that we're gonna do this thing of making community and making support and making a politics of sociality that's like not just this like you have to be this individual that suffers. Because systemic oppression is huge and so we can't do it alone. So I think with that we'll go into the workshop. For those of you who have energy left for it, I'm like totally tired, but I'm chronically ill, so that's normal. But anyway, please stick around, bring out your laptops if you have specific questions. Like maybe we'll just keep Sarin like here, like on this thing here. Yeah, like people can come over.
Unlimited data, it's fine.
Yeah. Or if you want to, ask any specific questions to any of the panelists, if you want to ask as a group, I think it should just naturally whatever you need, topics, questions, tips. Does that sound good? I know it's getting a little late. I think we ran over a bit, but so we can just hang out as long as you want. And feel free to leave too if you're of your